Hello and welcome to Rally Point. This is our monthly series that brings together veteran topics, programs, and veterans themselves front and center. If you are watching us on Facebook Live, we would love to learn where you are tuning in from. If you can, share your city and state in the chat, and thank you for joining us. Before we introduce today's topic and jump into the conversation, let's hear from our Rally Point sponsors, Central Ohio Ford Dealers.
Throughout our 120 years, Ford has supported our nation's armed forces and honored their selfless service to our country. The Central Ohio Ford dealers are proud to continue this tradition by investing in the work of the National Veterans Memorial and Museum in Columbus. Together, we want to share the veterans' heroic stories and introduce a grateful nation to the faces behind our forces. Please join us monthly to hear inspiring educational stories from our veterans who have gone above and beyond their call to defend freedom around the world. The National Veterans Memorial and Museum and your Central Ohio Ford dealers. Together, we will never forget.
Thank you, Central Ohio Ford Dealers, for your support for supporting our veterans and their service to the nation. My name is Marnie Holder. I'm the Veterans Services Program Officer for the National Veterans Memorial and Museum. While I've never served in uniform, I feel blessed to have supported those who have served for my entire 30-plus year career. In my current role, I lead the team committed to our mission as a storytelling museum by connecting our veterans to communities, networks, and organizations who help them thrive in the next phase of life. For those who don't know, the National Veterans Memorial Museum is the only museum in America that honors all veterans from all branches of service and from all eras of our nation's proud history, both peace and wartime. We've created a powerful and personal museum experience designed to give a voice to those who answer the call for our country. Our vision is to honor, connect, inspire, and educate to create national networks that empower and provide opportunities for veterans. To bring that vision to life, on July 25th, we will join the nation in observing National Hire Veteran Day, which gives us an opportunity to support veteran journeys after service and highlight incredible organizations who are contributing to their success. Today, we are joined by one of the top thought leaders on veteran and military spouse employment. It's an honor to welcome Navy veteran, President of Hiring Our Heroes, and Vice President of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Eric Eversole. Welcome, Eric. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Marnie. Really proud to do it.
Awesome. Well, I want to give you a chance to tell your journey, how you came to service, and then how did you get to where you are now after service?
Thanks, Marnie. Well, let me first congratulate and thank you and General Ferreter for what you're doing at the National Veterans Memorial Museum. It really does make a huge difference in the way that you tell those stories and really connect with our military community. So thanks for that amazing work, and we're really proud of it. My story, I grew up in a small town in Indiana, and my dad told me that there were one of two ways to get ahead in life. Join the military or go to college. And I started the college route the first time, and after 4 years, I did really well, but really found finding that right job and that purpose-driven life to be really difficult. So I joined the Air National Guard and went down that path. And at the same time, I had applied to law school. And so when I got into law school and continued to serve in the Indiana National Guard, I also then transferred into the Navy JAG Corps. And so, for me, it was a real honor to serve in more than 23 years of both active and reserve time. It was something that gave me a great sense of purpose and accomplishment, something that, really helped me as both a leader and someone connected to the business community. The two ways of getting ahead in life, he treated it as an or option, but I did the and option. And the and option was really something that I think made me better as a person and as a community leader. And when this opportunity came along to run Hiring Our Heroes and really impact transitioning service members and their families, it was something that I couldn't pass up on. It's been an amazing journey.
So let's just start with ground zero. Why is veteran employment and economic stability important?
Oftentimes when we talk about this issue, we often talk about it through one lens, usually the veteran or the military spouse's lens. And that's obviously critically important. We have to certainly think about those who have raised their right hand and have served and sacrificed their country, and the moral obligation that we have to take care of them. But I see it a little bit differently. And again, I see it beyond that. And I think for a lot of young service members and their family members, this economic opportunity is not something that's simply a handout after a thankful country thanks someone for their service, right? It's more than that. It is part of the fabric of how we deliver opportunities in this country. And so I obviously think that part of what we do from an economic opportunity is critical. But I also see this through a second lens, and I see it through a workforce lens, a business lens, and how important it is for our country to have incredibly skilled workers that know how to get the job done. You know, when we think about the future of work and the talent that's going to be needed and the resiliency, and we're in a whole new world now with AI and how that's going to impact the world. And the one audience that I know through and through can make, you know, the adjustments necessary to deal with a work environment that's going to help usher in this incredible technology is the American military community, without a doubt.
So let's go back to hiring our heroes and why it was created in the first place, and really just talk me through the transformation of what it was started as, and then where you are as far as making an impact.
We were, when we started in 2011, we were dealing with a crisis in what was veteran unemployment, and it was especially a crisis for young service members who were coming back from deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan, where we had 30% unemployment for veterans under the age of 25. And for post 9/11 veterans, I think it was somewhere 13 or 14%. It was certainly higher than the national average as it compared to those age groups. And you know, from the Chamber's point of view was, and I think the larger business community and the government, private, and public sector views, was that we had to do something about it. We couldn't have 30% of our veterans under the age of 25 coming home from war zones facing the unemployment line. And for the Chamber, we did what we could do quickest and most impactfully, was we worked with our state and local chambers to host what were hiring events in local communities and connect what were predominantly unemployed veterans with companies that would give them a chance. And that worked tremendously well, especially through the first couple of years. But as veteran unemployment started to come down very rapidly, we really shifted our focus to how does the American business community see our military connected talent, both our veterans and military spouses, as a strategic asset to their business. How do we leverage what they've learned, create pathways to showcase those skills, to help understand that a veteran or a military spouse resume may look a little bit different, but how do we focus on the skills? And I think it's part of what led to the overall change in workforce as a whole, and how do we start to view people on some beyond just a piece of paper as a resume and as a strategic asset in your business. And so our programs are really focused now on veterans and military spouses, transitioning service members as strategic assets. And then how do we bridge what is something that may look a little bit different, but you get enough of it in your business and man, is it really good.
When you talk about kind of the background and where you started as tackling the unemployment, and then of course your efforts and the collaborative efforts of the nation, getting to the point where veteran unemployment is at a pretty significant low, pretty impressive. But I know that you at Hiring Our Heroes and others, you started to get left over the past many years. And instead of tackling unemployment, you're getting resources to them while they're still serving and helping make informed decisions. Talk me through that pivot and where you're seeing kind of the value of doing that and where it's led.
Yeah, well, Marty, you were obviously a critical part of that for Hiring Our Heroes as you stood up what were our career summits. And we went from hiring events that were really focused on unemployed veterans in local communities to going to military installations and partnering with the bases, hosting these career summits that were intended to not only be a connection point and hiring event, but really a career exploration event and provide the necessary training. And I think they were really premised, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I at least in my mind, I really viewed them as really an entry point for starting to address what do I want to do next and where do I want to do it. I mean, I think we view service members and their families, we put them up on a pedestal and think, oh, well, they can do anything. And of course, they can. But when it comes to trying to figure out what's next and actually and having a lot more choice than probably what you did in the military, it's a really scary process for a lot of service members. And it's not because they don't want something better. They clearly want something better. They want more for themselves and their families. They want to contribute to their communities. But it's a really scary process. It can be really lonely to do some pretty incredible things in the military, but not necessarily understand how that applies to what's next in your life. It's really fundamentally about meeting people where they are. It's about not only geographically on their installations, because we know that only about 25 to 30% are going to stay there, but it's also meeting them where they are from a thought process and a career exploration point of view, and then not treating them as a one size fits all, but really saying, okay, look, regardless of where you are on this journey, let us help you think about some tools and resources that you're going to need to be successful. I mean, we need to get to the point where tie the recruiting process to the long-term economic opportunity on the other side. Our service members are too valuable and incredibly important for the business community to just, invest so heavily and then just kind of step aside.
So you talk about the focus and investment on the service members, meeting them where they're at, getting left of left. But and I know this, Hiring Our Heroes has done a lot on educating employers. And that's really where your sweet spot was to begin with, was you were trying to really advocate for veterans, explaining what that veteran talent means and educating the employers on tapping in to this talent pipeline. So talk me through kind of the evolution of what you did starting out with Hire Our Heroes, and then how do you get a national movement of employers that are committed to veteran talent?
Well, the national part's not too hard. I mean, once you hire a couple veterans, and I don't ever have a problem with having them companies want more. And I do think that was a great part of our success early on, was that the companies started to see that the talents, the amount of talent that they were getting and the amount coming out of the military. When we talk about companies, the thing that I think really made a difference was I could go up and do 100 different trainings, and maybe we would get some number of companies to bite and say, yeah, we're going to really invest in it heavily. But what I've found over the years is that the real thing that we need to do is to simply get more and more military talent into their workforce so that they see it firsthand. It's why programs like SkillBridge, which was created in 2014, which provides internships to young transitioning service members, has been so critical. Because the reality is that if you can get someone into your company for 12 weeks and make their resume not matter as much, right? It's about the person. It's what they're capable of. That changes the entire framework. And, we have now operate the largest SkillBridge program called the Corporate Fellowship Program. In my view, it has been and will be a game changer. And I tell people that if you think about it, if you think about things a little bit differently, how we think about what the military provides from an educational and experience perspective, and you think about what colleges and universities provide. I mean, but how does every college kid in America get a job? An internship. And so if you think about the military experience, again, incredibly valuable, incredible work experience, educational experience, life skills. The real challenge for a lot of these kids is that they just, they're coming out of the military. They just need that experiential bridge to showcase what they're capable of and what they can do for your business. And then the hiring takes care of itself. And we've seen that from the data. We're going to post 3,000 fellows this year into internships, 85% offer rate. The average salary is $110,000 a year. I mean, it's incredible. It really is, but it's not. We want to think about this as some foreign process. It's not. It's how Americans get jobs. Internships are really great.
Talk me through what Hiring Our Heroes has done just to impact spouse employment and what that means for retention and how it positions families for transition.
Yeah, well, let me just say this. I've been 110% committed to this issue since the day I started at Hiring Our Heroes. It is it's something that we don't do well at. We have not done well as a country of helping our military spouses when it comes to employment. There's been, obviously, a lot of challenges related to it, in part because you have a very mobile population that's moving every 2 to 3 years, throw in a couple of deployments here and there. You throw in trying to raise a family into the mix. And I will say that, and I think overall this is something our business community and country needs to do a better job of as well. There's a lot of gender-connected issues here for a lot of military spouses. 92% of military spouses are women, and we have a population that some leaves the workforce for some period of time, and we don't do very well as a country to help what are very talented workers get back into the workforce after that gap. And again, I think some of this is because our recruiting processes haven't evolved. I tell people if you want to hire the very best talent out there, you have to stop recruiting like it's 1980 and 1990. You really have to think about talent much differently. And as we're thinking about the employment aspects of only one person in the family being the service member and not the others, we're creating a lot of economic pressure on our families. We did a study a couple of years ago when more than 60% of American families were dual income and military families were only at 40%. That loss, and that's the same place America was in the 1970s. And so that loss of that second income often means, lost opportunities to be able to do things for your kids or to send them to camp or go on a nice vacation. And I do think that Congress and the Department of Defense took a significant step forward by approving a pilot about a year ago called the Military Spouse Career Accelerator Pilot that provides those internships for military spouses. What's really incredible about this is the Department of Defense is paying those military spouses a stipend for 12 weeks after we place them with the company. And so the company doesn't have to worry about, looking at budgets or what type of internship this is. But, your quote unquote skin in the game is to make sure that you have an opportunity that you're going to actively consider them for. Great news is we launched this pilot in January with Deloitte and the Department of Defense. We've already placed more than 170 spouses in the first 6 months, which is great. We're seeing hiring data well over 80%. And 70% of these jobs are remote. So you know what that means. It means they're going to be able to take them with them to the next job or to the next duty station. And that's going to be a game changer. So I'm going to tell you, it's an area where from the secretary on down at the Department of Defense, this is a top priority. The spouses and the chiefs of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs are all taking this very seriously. They're taking care of their people. I'm really excited to see General Brown and Mrs. Brown as the future chairman and spouse of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They're incredible leaders that are really committed to this issue. And I will say that where the needle's moved on this, which I'm most proud of, is that everybody's now talking about this, and we need to get it right. And I'm excited about that. And I think it's really going to start to shift the landscape of how we take care of and how we see military families and put them in a different light.
We talked about SkillBridge, and I just wanted to give the opportunity if there was anything else that you feel like were some pivotal moments over the past decade that really impacted, veteran transition or military service member transition beyond SkillBridge, and then we'll get into with the what's next.
All right. So look, I think, there's a lot of work to be done, and the what's next is part of what needs to be done. But I will say that as you think about the transformation that's occurred in the veteran and military spouse, but especially the veteran employment space, transitioning service member space, is pretty incredible. Veteran unemployment has hovered at or around or below 3% for the last several years. It's quite remarkable and the unemployment data tells you that veterans aren't unemployed. That often doesn't necessarily speak to the quality of jobs, but we're also seeing good quality jobs, and that's encouraging. But we're not dealing with a situation like we dealt with back in 2011, where we had a segment of the population with 30% unemployment. In fact, the military community as a whole, on the active duty side and the veteran side, has been under all the other indices when it comes to employment when you compare it to the civilian sector. So that's a big win, big change. The amount of unemployment insurance that we're paying is a drop compared to what we were. And so that's in my view, a tremendous shift in how we see service members as an asset.
Yeah.
I think, and I know this will kind of lead into probably the next question, but the real issue we have right now is how do we navigate the current challenges that the department has meeting end strength and recruiting goals.
That's where the opportunity resides. So where do you see the collaborative effort, focusing on helping the Department of Defense address this? And how are you informing that?
It's hard, right? Because I think that, a lot of times when we think about recruiting, we're very much thinking about recruiting much in the same way I was recruited. It's Dragon Slayer commercials. And we're now seeing a generational shift in how we recruit service members into the military and what their expectations are. This generation is different. So they're asking, if I do this, what's in it for me? And I think that's a great question. In my view, I don't think that there's a better economic pathway forward for a lot of young Americans. We just have to get young Americans to think about military service a little bit differently as something that's not only just I'm sacrificing, right? Because you will. There's no doubt about that. But you're going to get a lot out of it too. And part of what you're going to get out of it is some of the best training and personal experience and the decision-making skills that are going to help you make more in the long run and be better parts of your community. And there's a lot to be said for that.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing just your journey, and then just how you have just been incredibly influential in leading a team that's made significant change. And so for those that are listening in, if you're a veteran, we want to hear about your story, your journey. If you are going to be a veteran one day in transition, or if you're a military spouse, go to Hiring Our Heroes. They will help you get connected to your next career. So thank you again. And before we wrap up, I do have a few just housekeeping remarks for those that do follow us and get involved in our programming. I want to let you know we have ongoing and regular jujitsu, veteran jujitsu, and yoga classes, not only here at the museum, but we're partnering with organizations nationwide. Our Summer Salute to Service artwork contest is active right now through the end of July. We do have it July 13th through the 15th. We have free library days in partnership with the Columbus Metropolitan Library. Our third annual Pets and Vets week is July 13th through 15th as well. We have a community blood drive on July 18th, 2 upcoming art classes on July 27th and 28th. Kristen Navy veteran and artist is our newest exhibit here at the museum, highlighting the midshipman's journey. She will be here in the museum to help with the painting classes. Finally, don't miss our first annual Small Business and Entrepreneur Summits on August 3rd and 4th in celebration with the 80th anniversary of the Small Business Administration. And for any more details on these upcoming events or others, head to our website, nationalvmm.org. Thanks again, Eric, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Throughout our 120 years, Ford has supported our nation's armed forces and honored their selfless service to our country. The Central Ohio Ford dealers are proud to continue this tradition by investing in the work of the National Veterans Memorial and Museum in Columbus. Together, we want to share the veterans' heroic stories and introduce a grateful nation to the faces behind our forces. Please join us monthly to hear inspiring educational stories from our veterans who have gone above and beyond their call to defend freedom around the world. The National Veterans Memorial and Museum and your Central Ohio Ford dealers. Together, we will never forget.